Welcome to the Expectation Gap Podcast, where we unpack the gap between what employers expect and what workers experience. Here's your host, Sam Herrera.
All right. Well, welcome to our podcast today. And today we have with us James Young. James is an owner of a company that does trucking. He also owns a company that does transportation for veterans. And he's been a good friend of mine for a very long time. And I always look up to him, and I kind of bounce things off of him to get his point of view on too many things. I'm sure he's tired of hearing her answering the questions I have for him. But welcome to our podcast, James.
Thank you, sir. Hopefully I'll live up to that introduction one day. Thank you.
Well, I want to get right into it. Just going to ask you a couple of questions. We're going to go over our whole premises here is to see what owners expect, what associates expect, and what the expectation is from both sides. So just going to get your expectations and talk more about that. So we'll start right off by asking, what's the single most important quality you look for in an employee?
So the same thing I look for in a friend, loyalty.
Loyalty. All right. Are a lot of your friends loyal?
I would like to think so, but
Right.
I know a lot of people, but my circle is very small.
Tell us about your circle. What was your background? How did you get to own these companies?
Well, I founded them. I have partners in them. So when I was in Texas, I have a real estate business in Texas that I own by myself. I have some duplexes out in Killeen, Texas.
Nice.
And then while I was there, I had an old friend that I ran into, and we started talking about trucking. I left that company, and I started a company with some more friends when I didn't think it was going the way it should go. And then when I got here to Charlotte, I had moved probably about 2 years ago, and I was volunteering at the VA, and I saw that a lot of veterans were waiting around for rides or could not get rides. And then I started on my journey. I talked to my wife, and we started on a journey to owning that business called Ready Lift.
Ready. Well, it seems like you have an entrepreneurial spirit. Where did you get that?
So I'm from New York City, right? You gotta hustle to survive.
Got to hustle.
So, but I just like there was a TV show back in the day called The A-Team. Maybe I'm dating myself.
Yeah.
Do you remember how? Well, I can't remember the head of the team. He said, "I love it when a plan comes together."
Hannibal. You see yourself as Hannibal?
Kind of, sort of. But I love when a plan comes together. I love to build things from scratch. Right? And when you can build something and get paid off it and work with your friends or family, that's a beautiful thing.
Okay, so friends or family. Let me ask you, how do you define a good worker in your business? If with your friends and family, are you hiring them?
So I don't work too much with my family. Well, my wife with this last business, but I would define a good worker as somebody who's proactive, who you don't have to tell what to do, who's on time, and who is looking for work to do. Not I give you something and you go sit down afterwards. I need you to be proactive, be engaged, involved, and show some loyalty to the company.
Okay, so there's that word loyalty again. So as long as they're doing what they're supposed to be doing and moving your company forward, is that what you're looking for?
Yes, amongst many things.
So when you hire someone, what do you expect them to bring to the table beyond the job description? What is it that you're looking for beyond? I know you said loyalty, and you want them to look for things to do to improve themselves in your company. But what is it that you expect them to do that's beyond that job description? Because you probably set their parameters of what they're going to do, right?
So I expect them to be committed. I expect them to know their job and bring their personal values or the personal touch on making the business successful.
And how would that be? What would be the personal touch you're looking at?
For instance, in the Ready Lift business, in my moving veterans around, customer service, right? A smile, courtesy. You know, when people come in and when I'm there, I offer them water. We have a TV in there. What would you like to watch? I have blankets I give away to them, wheelchair blankets. Would you like a blanket? But I want my employees to do that. I want them to bring their personality and their jovial spirit to some of the people that ride with me because their spirits are naturally low. I mean, I'm dealing with amputees, people on dialysis, you know, all kind of stuff. So I want everybody to be on board and be a happy ride. I want it to be the love boat on wheels. So
And you expect them to create that whole love boat situation
here, right? And everybody has a different personality. What you might think is being courteous, I might not, right? So
Right.
you might have a different take on that, and I want you to bring that to the table. Right?
Okay. So can you share a time when an employee kind of exceeded those expectations? And why did it stand out? What was it that made those expectations that you're talking about stand out to you?
Okay. Well, I'll give you an example just recently. So we get up very early in the morning. Like some days I have pickups at 5 o'clock that are like an hour away.
Oh wow.
So yeah, so we gotta leave at 4. So you got to be here like 3:30, right?
Okay.
I have my main employee. He comes at 3 o'clock and he'll sit outside on the porch until I turn the light on and open the door.
Oh
Right?
wow.
And we'll go get fuel at the end of the day, and he doesn't charge me for that time. He's like, "Hey man, you know, we're just getting fuel. My time stops now. You good, right?"
Okay.
He goes and fills the thing up with water for me without me asking. I like that. That's proactivity.
So he's proactive. You like the fact that he's willing to go above and beyond your job description to get the needs of the company done, even though he's not asked. That's great. So with that, right? With that being said, what do you think workers misunderstand about you being the business owner? If he's doing those things and he understands everything that you want, is there anything that he might misunderstand about that?
So a lot of, and I'm not just going to say him in particular, but most employees don't understand what the owners go through, how many hours have to be done behind the scenes to make the day go right. Right. For instance, I get the loads from the prime contractor, and they don't have times on them, right?
Okay.
On how long it takes to get between each stop, how many miles it is, so on and so forth. I can figure out the gas and all that. So when I get those at 7 o'clock at night or 6 o'clock at night, I'm there typing and putting those times in.
Oh,
It's easier for the next day, you know, putting them in document protectors. Then I go over QuickBooks and categorize all the transactions for that day, usually gas, maybe some meals. We got to pay taxes every now and then, ADP, payroll, stuff like that. So, yeah, they don't understand what it takes. And then commitment as far as money. I put my own money out sometimes, right? If there's a gap in us getting our check and them getting their check, right? And
right.
Vehicle goes in repairs. When you first start a business, you're coming out of your pocket. So I'm coming out of my pocket with thousands of dollars, and they don't understand. Well, I need a raise. I need this. I said, you know, it's tight. So you have to be your own cheerleader when you own a business, right?
Okay. And does when he's doing these extra things, right? And you've seen that he's kind of gone beyond, and he asked for this raise, and you're saying he doesn't see the behind the business thing. Do you think that maybe he thinks he can run that without you? Or I mean, because it seems like you set him up for the whole day. Is that the usual for that?
Well, I go out with him. I mean, he's a very trustworthy person. Don't get me wrong, but it's very hard for me to trust my single largest asset that's running the business to somebody. I'd like to be there. So if something goes wrong, I can fix it. For instance, this morning, the lift got stuck and he didn't know how to fix it. So I had to jump out of my bed, drive 25 minutes to fix it while somebody was stuck in the back of the vehicle in the wheelchair. We couldn't get out.
Oh,
yeah. So halfway there, he figured it out and it went down. But had I been there, I would have fixed it on the spot. So
Okay.
we'll turn it in Friday to get fixed. So we'll let me say half of that Friday for that to get fixed.
All right. So, what responsibilities do you believe you have towards your employee beyond paying the wages? I mean, right now you talked about his wages and him coming up and asking for a raise, but what is it that you think your your responsibility is to him?
So my responsibility is to make sure he gets his pay on time. He's operating in a safe environment, and I'm responsible for the esprit de corps of the company. Now, all the employees don't work at the same time, right? We have
Okay.
4 employees, one vehicle. So what we do is me and my wife, once a quarter, we take them out for a team building activity. We just did Top Golf this last weekend.
Okay.
Um, Last quarter, we all bowled. We fed everybody pizza, all that kind of stuff. And then every year in all of my businesses, I do what's called Thanks on Thanksgiving. So, if you don't have any money to eat Thanksgiving, I will make sure you eat Thanksgiving. We all eat Thanksgiving together. So we have a feast for that one night, and they can bring a guest. And I think that builds morale and esprit de corps, basically.
So, how do you think then if you're doing all these extra things for him, right? And you're doing beyond your responsibility of just getting him paid and creating a safe environment, how do you balance the profitability with creating a good work conditions?
So, to me, it's not really a balance. They go hand in hand, right? Because you'll be profitable if you have safe working conditions. If you don't, if people hurt themselves, you're not going to have anybody work, and you're not no money.
Yeah, I
If
can
so,
understand that completely. So, he's driving your truck. You're watching him do it, right? You're transporting these people, and he's in
right.
a great working environment, right? What do you think your employee values most about working with you?
I think the biggest thing that anybody who works with me now, I'm kind of hard to work for because
No,
I want you to do it my way, right?
right?
Dress for a dress. However, I also try to instill atmosphere of family, right?
Okay, yeah.
Togetherness, right? So that's what we do when we have
Why do you
our
think that's important, James?
because it motivates people to work. Nobody wants to come to work and you're mean mugging all the time and yelling at them and whatever. So you should have some outlet for them to get to know you on a personal level, hang out
Right.
with you. And when we're in the truck for 12 hours riding, you're gonna get to know me anyway.
Right.
I'm
So
always I want
you're creating that culture then, right? The family culture of your business. You like it to be like that, right? So, have you ever been surprised by what your workers expect from you?
have I ever been surprised?
Yeah.
Um, I'm surprised because not with this individual, but I have another individual in the trucking business.
Uh-huh.
Every other month he was asking for a raise or he wanted to, I'm tarping this down, I can get paid for that. I'm waiting, I can get paid for that. I drove 100 miles deadhead, I want to get paid for that. So I'm telling you, every other month it was some kind of issue, right? We had a meeting once a month with the drivers to hear some of their complaints and fix what was wrong, right? Kind of like an after action review.
Right.
But it got ridiculous, it turned into a sensing session that was hostile.
Okay. So then with that being said, it turned into a hostile work environment. How did you change that around? Is he still working with you? How
No.
did you change that environment? And
Well, so here's the thing. If there's mutual respect, you're not going to have too many problems, right? But obviously, him and my dispatcher did not have that mutual respect and just civility, right?
okay.
When we start talking about issues and they're screaming and shouting and everything, that is not productive. So, not a good environment.
It
So,
wasn't a good
how
fit.
do we change it? We have to let one of the people go because it was ongoing for a year. It was like constant problems.
So how do you approach transparency then with your team about the business success and your challenges and the challenges of being successful in those businesses.
So every year we have an annual meeting. That annual meeting is usually accompanied by some kind of dinner, just like the Thanks on Thanksgiving.
Uh-huh.
So the Thanks on Thanksgiving, I get like for the trucking business, because we haven't been in this business a year yet. I give like a financial report and say this year we have crossed, $500,000 in sales. We rented a truck, we owe this. Our balance sheet's looking good. We got a new contract, so on and so forth. And then I have the meetings, the drivers' meetings once a month where they can come and tell us what's going right and what's going wrong. So 3 ups, 3 downs, right? And how do we sustain the good stuff and how do we get rid of the bad stuff? So that's my transparency.
All right. I'm sorry, my dogs are going nuts right now. I'm gonna try and keep. Hey, thanks, guys.
The answer to some of your questions.
Yeah, I think they're angry with my questions.
Mm-hmm.
So, how do you gather feedback then? What is it that you do to gather the feedback from the employees about their needs and expectations? If you're saying some of them are saying, hey, I'm doing this, I want compensation for that. How do you get feedback from what they're doing to actually build something that where, if they get to this point, we can offer you something more to their expectation?
So I give them feedback on the spot, right?
Okay.
And then they give me the feedback in the meeting.
Okay. And what's that feedback usually about?
It's usually about, when I say, well, what's going right? Oh, the patients, they're good. The clients are good. We're doing such on time. The vehicle's getting clean. Everything's working right, blah, blah, blah. And if a feedback is negative, they can say, hey, we were late a few times. That's why we're late. The lift is messed up. You got to get the lift fixed. It takes a while to get an appointment, stuff like that.
Okay. So then what with knowing all this feedback, getting it all together, what's the biggest gap you've seen between what you expect, right, and what they expect?
So the biggest gap, I think the biggest gap is basically in the pay, right?
Okay.
Everybody wants to make $1 million the first day and be chairman of the board. That's not going to happen.
All right.
So usually, if you have a company or anything, you have to give reality checks, right? For instance, my property manager sent me a new contract. In that contract were some things that were very unreasonable. I was already paying 10% for you to manage my stuff. Now you're putting $75 every 6 months to inspect. Every time you talk to somebody about my property, I got to pay you $75. You put in there that you want to sell my property and give you 6% right off rip. All of this in the contract. I should have the ability to pick who I want to sell my property.
Okay.
So
in your opinion, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you handle situations when employees' expectations conflict with the business realities? Because you're talking about, they want more pay, and then you're saying you're tight right now. How do you talk to them about that? How do you handle that situation?
So in the beginning, it was more of a challenge. Now that we've been making money for the last couple months, it's not as bad. But when we started, I just lay down low and be honest with them. Hey, we're not getting paid that much to give you this much X amount, right?
Right.
We have to remain profitable. I can't do that if I'm giving you, $10,000 a month. That's not going to work. So you just have to, keep it real with them, for lack of a better word.
So you kind of answer the next question is, in your opinion, what's the secret to keeping both sides happy? How do you keep yourself happy, and then them as well?
So you just have to be transparent on both sides. Let me know what I'm doing wrong so I can fix it, and I'll tell you what you're doing wrong so you can fix it. And let's live happily ever after.
All right. You're telling me that though the biggest expectation or the thing is monetary compensation. Is that correct?
Well, most people come to work to get paid. They don't come to hang out with me.
Right? Yeah, definitely.
So
But
that is right. That's the major thing, that is involved with employee-employer relationship is the money and benefits.
Okay, money and benefits. So, in your opinion, what's the secret to keep both of them happy? What is it? What is it? How do you keep them happy? Is it just the conversation? Is it the transparency? What would you say it is?
So everything is any relationship requires compromise, right?
Right.
And you have to have communication. So Nat Turner was a slave who led a revolt, right? And he said, he had a saying that I always use: the bridge between clarity and confusion is effective communication. So you have to effectively communicate with your employees so they know what your intent is, right? They can't carry out your intent if they don't get the message.
Right. Okay. So if you could give one piece of advice to other owners about managing expectations with their workers, what would that be?
So my thing would be honesty, transparency, communication. It's all wrapped up in communication, right? So when I was teaching college, there was 5 elements of communication I focused on: the sender, the receiver, the message itself, the context or how it was sent, the medium, and the noise in the background, right? Noise could be physical noise or noise in their head. They don't want to hear what you're saying, right? Like you might be a Republican and I might be a Democrat, right?
Okay.
I can give you all kind of facts, but you have this thing called confirmation bias where you don't care what I say, right? You're going to listen to the voice in your head. That's noise. So the message doesn't get through.
Okay. So if the message is the truth, then right, and there's and it goes through, and it's your guys' truth for the company, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's explained to your workers, then communication would be the biggest gap that you would need to fill, right?
Exactly.
All right. Well, thank you, man. We're going to wrap this up. I appreciate you coming on. Thank you
No
for
problem.
your insight.
Anytime.
I think
Anytime.
you're awesome, and I can't wait to talk to you again.
Yes, sir. I'll be here.
Hopefully we fill the gap. You're going to hear some of the sides of both of the owner and a worker. We'll probably have another worker on at another time. But once again, thanks again, James, for coming on and taking your time.
No problem, sir. I'm here for
appreciate
you anytime.
We're going to sign out. Thanks, guys. You have a great evening.
Thanks for your stuff. Yep.
Thanks for watching the Expectation Gap podcast. Join us next time as we keep breaking down the realities behind hiring, culture, and expectations.